Ricciardo's saga just doesn't keep disappointing us. Although it's surely not as pleasant for Ricciardo, we're thrilled by all the opportunities that are thrown away at Ricciardo for his future. There have been multiple reports about him signing with Alpine and Haas once the whole situation unwound down as it did with Piastri and McLaren, but the latest report says that Ricciardo could very well join Mercedes as a reserve driver and then conquer for the spot in 2024. So, is this possible, or is it just one huge rumour? Stick around with us to find out more. Now, Ricciardo hasn't had a decent season at McLaren in 2022, and frankly, 2021 wasn't something impressive too. True, he scored his 8th career win and the first win for McLaren after such a long time, 1 decade to be more precise, but that's it. Nothing more was done by Ricciardo, and now in 2022, he scored just 19 points with 7 races remaining, which is more than disappointing. With that being said, it was only fair of McLaren to look for another solution, such as replacing it with a young and more prospective driver in Piastri. But that doesn't solve Ricciardo's future in F1. Although he has been related to multiple seats such as Alpine and Haas, Ricciardo could very well accept the fact that he could be a reserve driver in 2023. What's encouraging for us and for him is that even though if he's offered the reserve driver's seat, which 2 teams can do that as we speak, he said that his future is in F1, and even if he doesn't race in 2023, he'll try to come back in 2024. When asked about his future, Ricciardo said that he wants to keep all the cards open and his primary focus would be F1, but he said that sitting out a whole season could also do him some good, adding, "I think there's pros and cons with all of it. There's pros with having some time off as well. Currently the 18 months I've had has been more challenging than not, so maybe some time away would be good." After this, Ricciardo spoke about the continuation of deals in F1, saying, "But then also staying active is good. That's why I kind of want to hear everything, even if it's a reserve. I don't want to be too proud to say I'm not too good for that. I just want to hear everything and see what makes sense. It could be something that sets me up better for the future, and next year may be one of those years where I need a bit of patience," said Ricciardo. He was also asked about whether he'd be willing to join a team that is more of like a long-term project, such as Williams in this case, and Ricciardo said, "I still definitely have the ability to love a project, but of course if there's this longer project and this one where you're going to win tomorrow, of course I'm going to go for the quick wins. They are things I would definitely give some thought to. I don't also want to be stubborn or short-sighted and be like, no, I'm not interested in that. I will give everything its respected thought. From 2017, every 2 years I've been with a different team. I don't want to just sign something and think, wait now, something else is there for 2024. So it's probably not as simple as just getting somewhere on the grid next year. It can probably go in many different directions, so I don't think it needs an immediate decision. It's going to be about what's best for me. I wouldn't give up on F1. If it means I'm not on the grid next year, I'll certainly try to find a way to be on there in 2024. It's honestly the only racing I'm really interested in at the moment. My mindset is still, I'm an F1 driver. I'm proud of what I've done, but I still feel there's a bit more to show, to give. I wouldn't race another category next year," finished Ricciardo. However, certain events have transpired that led us to believe that Ricciardo would have to satisfy himself with a reserve driver role. Let's talk about that shortly. Now, according to reports, Alpine have approached Gasly and have intensified their talks with the Frenchman, meaning they aren't willing to give Ricciardo their seat. Other reports also said that Haas is looking to make things work with Giovinazzi, who is Ferrari's reserve driver and is looking to make a comeback season in 2023 after losing his spot in Alfa Romeo to Zhou. He'll be granted 2 free practice sessions in Monza and Austin later this year, meaning that they do mean business with him. If Mick is to move from Haas, which is almost certain, he'll likely try to negotiate a deal with AlphaTauri. However, the team has closed the door on that one too, as Horner and Marco said that the only driver they're interested in replacing Gasly will be Colton Herta, as they're waiting for an exemption from the FIA whether he could be granted with his super license. Therefore, Ricciardo would have to satisfy himself with the role of a reserve driver, and apart from McLaren, who have already offered him this job, Mercedes has emerged as a possible suitor for Ricciardo's driving abilities. Now, according to an F1 journalist, Joe Sayward, it's been suggested that Ricciardo's best move might be to become a reserve driver at Mercedes, and this would help him build up his confidence again. If he has to choose between Mercedes and McLaren, his better chance lies in Mercedes since Hamilton is linked with retirement after the 2023 season, meaning that Ricciardo could snatch that position up. Now, it's become more evident that his future is not in McLaren, and it would be kind of humiliating for Ricciardo to take up a spot from a starter driver to a backup one after losing it to a young and potent compatriot of his. On top of that, Ricciardo said that he's open with any scenario that is currently available out there. He hasn't ruled out that he could be a reserve driver. Quite the contrary, Ricciardo has already accepted that he's not as wanted as he would like, and that comes after his 2 disappointing seasons with McLaren. Prior to that, Ricciardo was P5 in the Drivers' Championship and scored a couple of podiums for Renault after quite some time. So when he joined McLaren, the team that finished P3 in 2020 in the Constructors' Championships, we expected much more from him. However, destiny unfolded the way it did for him, and now he's without a seat in 2023. There is a high possibility that Ricciardo will take the sabbatical and not drive in 2023, meaning that he'll take the money from McLaren's buyout terms, which is around $15 million, and will try to conquer for a seat in 2024. Hamilton's deal is off in 2023 with Mercedes, and there is a high possibility that the Briton will call it quits if he doesn't have a chance to fight for the 8th championship, since he's got nothing left to prove to the F1 community. In a recent talk between Ricciardo and Perez during the Dutch GP, Ricciardo said that he's likely to sit out the 2023 season and look for an open spot for the 2024 season. This was said during the Drivers' Parade, and although a couple of other teams are available to offer a seat to Ricciardo, such as Alfa Romeo and Williams, it's highly unlikely that he'll accept them. Ricciardo's destiny is in his own hands, and although he's also been linked to joining McLaren in the IndyCar 500 since he's very popular in the States and can build himself quite the profile there, Ricciardo said he wants to continue his career in F1. This means that we aren't done seeing Ricciardo on the track, and the fact that he's linked to a Mercedes as their reserve driver could turn out to be the best scenario possible for him. He'd be able to learn how the car works for a full season, get a grip with it, and then replace Hamilton if the 7-time world champion was to retire. That way, the team will earn a very good candidate as a replacement for the champion, and Ricciardo will have a chance to prove that he's still worth it, performing for one of the best, if not the best teams in the F1 sport. So, what do you think will happen next with the Aussie? Let us know in the comments below.